we have a mantra here at Seed, which is be useful, be kind. And really, that's all of our foundational values, our guiding principles, and our philosophy in 2 lines: be useful, be kind. And the thing that we do is we try and initially, you have to approach everything with love and compassion. So if something kicks off, if you're dealing with a difficult client, you've had a really snotty email come through, whatever it is, you have to say to yourself, how can I approach this with love and compassion? And instantly, as soon as you think that, you reframe the situation. And we do the same with being useful and being kind. So say you're dealing with a difficult situation. You have an employee, something's happened, and you have to resolve a difficult challenge. We say to ourselves, 1, how can we be useful? And how can we be kind? So useful is being empathetic. It's about listening. It's about understanding. It's about working hard to resolve a situation. And then kind is what it is. It's about kindness. Yeah. Again, empathy is kindness. It's about truly listening to someone's situation and understanding why they are where they are, and what can I do to be a better employee or employer? How can I be a better boss? But it's just I think that 1 second rule of when anything happens, just framing the situation. How do I be useful? How do I be kind? How can I approach this with love? How can I approach this with compassion? And instantly you reframe the situation.
Jonny, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm really, really good. Yeah, it's been a crazy beginning to the year. 2023 has been a roller coaster, but it's all good. You know, I'm still alive. I'm still here. It's happy to be talking to you today, Junior. Always a pleasure.
Nah, the pleasure is mine. If you don't mind me being nosy, what made 2023? We are only February the 1st, and it's already been a roller coaster. What is it attributed to?
Yeah, well, work has been really, really busy. Lots of cool things going on, but unfortunately, it's lots of illnesses in my house. Nothing too serious.
Okay.
But yeah, just one thing after another with kind of bugs, flu, colds. I've got 3 small children. One's at nursery. One's at school, 2 at nursery, and they bring something back every week, and then we all get it. So life's tricky because you've got, running a business, 3 small children, you sprinkle a few colds in that and some tummy bugs, and life is crazy. It's really difficult. And, I said to Natalie, my partner, the other day, I know what it's like to be on the edge, but is that the edge? Does the edge get even edgier? And I hope it doesn't, but we were on the edge. We had 2 nights of no sleep. And we had no sleep on Sunday night. And Monday morning, myself and Natalie had to go and pitch a huge pitch to a client with no sleep. Thankfully, we were really well prepared. But yeah, we were just running on fumes. And then we got out the pitch and we just kind of like fell into the car and got home. But it's making us tough. You have to be tough. But yeah, no, the kids are slowly, getting better. So we're good. We're hitting February with much clearer and healthier, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. My fingers are crossed as well. So I feel like this idea of being in the edge and leading from there and navigating those moments or from that place, it's a metaphor for work, it's a metaphor for life. What is your strategy? What is your strategy when you find yourself having to lead from the edges, having to navigate and manage life from the edges?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, life is hard running a business, as you know, because you're always doing things differently every day. You've got always different jobs, always kind of figuring things out, working on projects, pitching. So you add children into the mix. You've got so many things to think about home and at work, and then illness on top of that. And when I mean, you're on the edge, you're literally just kind of getting through the day. And I think that's kind of the answer to your question is, how do you get through living life on the edge? You literally just have to get through day by day. And I know, and I remember, I say waking up in the morning. I wouldn't call it waking up. It was kind of coming to after a really poor night's sleep, because two of the children were up through the night. I remember just saying to Natalie, today we just get through the day. That's all we have to do. All we have to do today is just get through the day. And then in a few hours' time, we'll be back into bed. We'll get back into bed. And then tomorrow's a new day. And I remember like putting my pajamas on next to Natalie, and she's kind of putting her pajamas on. And I just turned to her and say, we made it. We made it through the day. And in those times, that's all you can do. You just got to plow forward and just almost kind of like get through the day minute by minute. But the key, the key with this is, I think it's like, you have to learn how to look after yourself. And what I mean look after yourself is that when you're really suffering and you're poorly and you've got lots to do and it's all going on, you've got to try and put health first. You have to put your health above your children, because if I'm not healthy and I can't look after my children, I'm useless to them. Absolutely. So it's like, you've got to get your fruit and vegetables in you. You've got to go and steal a few hours sleep here and there. If you're fortunate to be self-employed and you can have a little sleep in the day, go and have a sleep. Go into bed whenever you can. If you've got a break between meetings or whatever, go and get your head down for even half an hour. Drink obscene amounts of water, just a whole bathtub of water. Just keep yourself hydrated, get loads of vitamin C in you, get some sleep, and if you can, smile, and just do that day by day, and you get through the other side, and life's peachy again.
I love it. I mean, it's very practical advice. And one of the things that came to mind right away when you were, sharing some of what you were going through, and having to go on that pitch with zero sleep, tired, exhausted, with the added pressure of the pitch itself. It reminded me of this notion of, we really don't know what people are going through behind closed doors. We don't really know what is happening with them and to them. And therefore, this idea of extending empathy and understanding and assuming the best in people on a daily basis and giving them the grace that we should extend them on a daily basis for this very reason. Like, you just don't know what is happening. And so how do you, as a leader with people, how do you manage this idea with your employees of, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, extending grace, assuming the best in them? How does it play out at Seed?
Well, we spent a lot of time working on brand philosophy within our own organization, and we have a mantra here at Seed, which is be useful, be kind. And really, that's all of our foundational values, our guiding principles, and our philosophy in 2 lines: be useful, be kind. And the thing that we do is we try and initially, you have to approach everything with love and compassion. So if something kicks off, if you're dealing with a difficult client, you've had a really snotty email come through, whatever it is, you have to say to yourself, how can I approach this with love and compassion? And instantly, as soon as you think that, you reframe the situation. And we do the same with being useful and being kind. So say you're dealing with a difficult situation. You have an employee, something's happened, and you have to resolve a difficult challenge. We say to ourselves, 1, how can we be useful? And how can we be kind? So useful is being empathetic. It's about listening. It's about understanding. It's about working hard to resolve a situation. And then kind is what it is. It's about kindness. Yeah. Again, empathy is kindness. It's about truly listening to someone's situation and understanding why they are where they are, and what can I do to be a better employee or employer? How can I be a better boss? But it's just I think that 1 second rule of, when anything happens, just framing the situation. How do I be useful? How do I be kind? How can I approach this with love? How can I approach this with compassion? And instantly you reframe the situation. And like, you know, there's a saying that everyone's going through their own war. You know,
Mhm.
everyone's going through their own thing. And I don't know whether this is something that's relevant to our time in life, or has it always been this way, and as you get older you kind of look at things in a different way? You know, I definitely look at the life now very, very differently than I did 10 years ago. But is that because I'm older, I've matured, or is the world different? I'm not sure. But if you can approach those things, you know, in a certain way, and that's not to say as well that you don't need to be firm, and you don't need to um I don't know what's the right way to say this, but you know, you sometimes have to be um firm in what you do without
Yeah.
kind of people taking the mick out of you. So yeah, it's tricky, but
Yeah.
love and compassion all the way.
It is tricky. I mean, for me, one of my favorite words these days is candor, right? Is you yes, you want to be useful, yes, you want to be kind, yes, you want to be compassionate, but in that you also owe your employees to be candid. You owe them candor and true, honest feedback when it's required. And if it stings, it stings. But that's also an act of kindness. That is also in many ways being helpful for their professional growth, for their personal development, knowing that yes, it's going to hurt now, but we are all going to be better off in the long term because of the conversation, this very, very difficult conversation I'm having with this employee. And I think when you think about it that way, even in those moments when you have to be firm, it fits that mantra that you guys have set for yourselves.
And part of being, I totally agree. And part of being useful as well, like you said, is the honesty. And I think it's about how you deliver honesty. It's how you organize your honesty, and how you kind of work with someone and be honest, because you can be too honest, and also you can be too direct with the honesty without compassion, or honesty without emotions can be, you know, you can be a dictator to someone. So I definitely think with honesty it's about how you deliver your language, your body language, about how you frame a question, how you frame something. And another thing about honesty, it's quite an interesting, it's a stoic saying, or stoic philosophy, that you don't always have to have an opinion. Like,
Hmm.
we always think we have to have an opinion, we always have to have our say, but you don't, you know. I think sometimes it's best to not have an opinion. Sometimes you can just go through life and live and let live, and just let people do what they want and say what they want. If it's not, if, you know, if it's nothing to do with me, doesn't affect my life, just let them go on their merry way. And I think that's helped me get out of a few pickles sometimes. If I'm sat in a meeting, a board meeting, and someone says something that I don't quite agree with, you know, there's a time and a place to stand up. There's a time and a place to say, no, no, I don't agree with that. But there's also a time and a place just to let it go. And I think not having an opinion can really get yourself out a few pickles.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there's also something very powerful about not always sharing your opinion, which has the effect that when you actually do share your opinion, people tend to listen a little bit more, and it tends to have a little bit more weight.
And yeah, but there's a difference as well between sharing your opinion and not having an opinion. Like,
Mm.
you can almost train yourself to not have an opinion, and I think to some of the listeners that might seem really bizarre, and the fact, you know, and quite strange to them. But I think sometimes there's a thing about keeping your head down, and when you're so in tune with your own instincts, and when you're so in tune with your own morals and your own values, that you're not bothered about other people's. And you're not bothered by people's opinions. And it depends what platform we're on here. You know, if you're just gliding through conversations, or you're gliding through a situation and it doesn't directly affect you, and you're on your own path, you glide through, and you kind of, it's not about having blinkers, it's just not allowing people to disrupt the way that you feel. And you know, Twitter, if you look at Twitter as a platform, that is just a huge disruption of values and opinions. And it's a boiling point of people want to be right all the time. But I can glide through tweets of things that I don't agree with and not care, because I don't have to have an opinion on that. I know who I am, and I know what I believe in, and I know my values, and their opinions, just, they mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
and I can just, and I don't get pulled into the pettiness of trying to be right. I can't be bothered with it. It's not about winning or losing to me. And I find that, you may have heard me mention this before about energy, about protecting your energy. You can actually visualize your energy. You know, it could be a sphere or a glow or whatever it could be. It could be something else. It could be that, you know, like whatever
Yeah.
your energy is, and you have to protect it. You have to think, well, that's my energy, and it can be depleted, it can grow, but overall, I want to make sure that I look after it, because your energy is your force that's going to keep you driving you forward. It's the thing that gets you up in the morning. You may even call it a purpose, but I'm a big believer in you protect your energy fiercely, and something like social media can suck it out of you. You know what I mean? And getting into an argument at work, or you're getting into a debate, it can suck out your energy. So yeah, it's not healthy to do that.
Yeah. So this powerful I'm going to be redundant, this superpower of being able to glide through life and gliding through platforms like Twitter unscattered with your energy somewhat intact, is that something that you've always had, this ability to be stoic and go through these moments and situation, or is that something that you've had to develop over the years? And if so, how how can
But
the rest of us do it
mm.
too? Because now I want that.
Well, look, it's definitely the latter. It's definitely something I've had to learn and adopt, and it's not something I'm perfect at either. Don't get me wrong. Like you catch me on a bad day, and that goes to the roof. You know, goes out the window. Sorry. So, yeah. So I think it's something you learn, adopt. I've kind of got into stoicism probably maybe more so within the pandemic. I was reading a lot more books, and it was only till I read "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday that I was like, I get this, you know. And Stoicism, what the thing I love about Stoicism is turning life challenges into kind of learning points, into strength, and I think it was him that said, I think it might have been a Marcus Aurelius saying or meditation about not you know, you don't have to have an opinion. And I don't know whether I glide through life, but I definitely I'm able now to sit in a meeting, and and I think I think it's a superpower, and the superpower is silence, is to not say anything. I always felt like in meetings where I felt inferior or had imposter syndrome, I needed to talk. I needed to talk to try and prove my worth. I actually find now that I get more respect by not saying anything at all. So, you know, I sit there and listen as much as I can. And one of the places where I learned that, where did I hear that? It was about leadership, and it was about, I think it was from the Barack Obama autobiography, The Promised Land. And he was saying in that um, where was it? It was saying, it'll come to me in a bit, but a good leader speaks last. So um, you sit around in a circle, and you look to your left, and then you ask for them first of, you know, what's your opinion, and you go round the circle, and eventually it comes to you, and you listen to everyone speak. It was sorry, Nelson Mandela's father taught him this. That was it. It was
Mm,
Nelson Mandela's father taught him this, and it went round in a circle. And as you get to the end of the circle, and everyone's had their opinion, then you have your opinion as a leader. And I thought that was really powerful. And so now in meetings, I really like asking great questions and then listening. And then when I'm ready, then I give my opinion. So it doesn't really answer your question about gliding through life. But what I'm trying to get to here is, I think it's about being more observant, asking good questions, and absorbing it all and taking the time to think. And then when you're ready to talk and have an opinion, then you deliver it at the right time, and not be so keen to talk and kind of put your opinions first about things. It's about just listening and reading the situation.
yeah. For me, this speak to two ideas that are very, very important to me, which are self-awareness and self-mastery. Um, do you have practices that you do to sharpen your self awareness and to sharpen your ability to master your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and really practice that silence that you mentioned earlier?
Yes and no. I think outs if we look at work, or if we could look at life as work, the times we're at work and the times where we're not at work and we're at home with loved ones, friends, whoever that is. Now they obviously do bleed into each other. Being self-employed, they bleed into each other a lot more. I think for me to be a good father, a good partner, and a good business person, I think it's important to be healthy. And when I talk about health, I think it's physical health, it's mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. They're four areas. And I'm still a student of this. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think there's times where physically I'm fit, I'm running every day, I'm going to the gym, and mentally I feel strong. But actually spiritually and emotionally I might be wobbling a little bit. And there's times where I'm spiritually feeling great and I'm, and I'm observant and I'm absorbing life and I feel like I'm part of the planet. And emotionally I'm balanced, but I put on weight and my mental health might be a little bit wobbly. Like I feel like there's always a balancing act. But I feel that if you can get your balance right and that you're active, you're eating well, you're socializing with your friends, and you're spiritually in a good place, I feel like when I'm there, I'm living at my peak performance and at my optimal performance. I'm never always there. Like there's periods where I'm there and there's periods where I'm not. But I'm always working towards that. Even when I'm not, I know that. I take a step back and think, where am I right now? Well, I need to be hitting the pavement more. I need to be running more. I'm not I'm not taking any time out. I'm not present with my children. And I'm constantly trying to look at these four pillars and make sure that I'm there. And when I am, I feel like that's when I'm the most grounded. I feel that's when I'm at my calmest, but I'm also at my most concentrated in what I'm doing. But yeah, that's life, isn't it? Just trying to figure those things out. It's just life, and
It
I think
is.
we're all trying to work at it.
It is. It's a practice. I mean, it's a daily practice, and it's learning from experience, from the stumbles, and doubling down on the things that seem to be working. Um,
Mm. But
so go on.
mindfulness is good at that. Mindfulness is good at is understanding what am I missing in my life? What am I not doing? What should I do more of? And I really wish I could meditate every single day, have a really good self-care exercise. I would love to have like at least 2 hours a day where I could just engage with all of that. The difficulty is, and this is not an excuse, is that having three small children and running a company, it just bleeds into that. There's things that happen. I don't have a night's sleep because I've got ill children and I've got a pitch the next day. Trying to have routine with three small children in a business is almost next to impossible.
Yeah,
But I have to remind myself my children are only young for a small period, so enjoy it. Take each day as it comes. Don't beat yourself up. So yeah, that's the balancing act that I live right now.
absolutely. And in that as well is this story that I really really love from Jay Shetty's book, that was talking about this when he was doing his monk training. There he was traveling on a train, and they will, at every stop, they will take the opportunity to meditate, or they will have regular intervals when they will meditate. And he, at every stop, he will get off the train and find a quiet spot so that he could meditate. And the master monks, or the people that have seniority, will ask him, where do you go? And he's like, no, I just want to find a quiet space in order for me to meditate. And the masters were like, no, like meditation is to happen within the chaos. This is where life takes place. Like if you need to be in a quiet, controlled environment in order to meditate, then you are completely missing the point. And I think it just speaks to what you were talking about with three kids and not having the time. Is the whole thing is the practice. It's being a little bit more mindful during the day. It's paying attention to how you respond to situation in a meeting, how you respond to the way an employee may make a mistake, and on, and continually just getting better at navigating those things if they don't make you feel great about yourself, and doubling down again on the things that make you feel good. That is the practice, you know.
Mm. Yeah, you don't have to sit in a room, switch the lights off, close your eyes, put some incense on, and have some like nice meditation music to understand and listen to your own thoughts, or
Yeah,
to not think. and and I think, and this has been going on since humanity began, taking 5 minutes, praying, or taking a breath, or having a cup of tea. Like
yeah,
having a cup of tea, the process of walking away, putting the kettle on, pouring the hot water in the tea bag, letting it stew for a bit, then putting the milk in, like that's a meditation in its own right. It's just taking that time to think, and that's why we have a cup of tea through the days. Like, and I say to Natalie, if there's something's going on at work, and this, it's a bit tricky, and it's a bit stressful, I'll be like, do you want a cup of tea? Yeah, let's have a cup of tea. And the time of normally coming back with that tea, and I normally sit down and go, I've got an idea. We should do this. And just having that minute to do that. And the same with like emails. You get an email from someone that might be a bit negative. You want to send one straight back. It's like, no, just wait, just chill. And that's when empathy really comes to play. Like, why have they sent that email? Why have they reacted in that way? What's going on in their life, in their time right now? They felt they have to say that. And as soon as you frame the situation a different way, you're like, okay, maybe they're stressed out, maybe their boss is saying something to them. Okay, how can we be useful? How can we be kind?
yeah,
Bang, the situation's changed straight away. And then you do something like that, and then they react in a better way, and they come back, and you can sort things out as you can. It's interesting to talk about Jay Shetty and that story about the monk. And I heard a saying the other day, which I thought was really important, is that in our lives we are knowledge rich but experience poor. And there's no point meditating all the time if we're not putting things into practice. There's no point trying to think about things if we're not the glue of life is the doing of stuff,
yep,
is you have to have these situations where things go bad and things go well. Because if you try and glide through life and avoid stuff, then you've got nothing to think about, you've got nothing to contemplate about, you've got nothing to empathize with. You have to get in the trench of life. You have to be there with the mud and the bullets to kind of figure out the situation, and then you bring yourself out of it. And then when you do have some time to think, to feel, and to kind of organize your thoughts and feelings in a way, then you can start to make better decisions. But you've got to be in the glue of life to kind of know what's the right thing to do.
yeah. Yeah, I'm going to switch gear a little bit. I've been watching you. Obviously, I'm a big fan of your work. I'm a big fan of you. So even when I don't reach out, know that I'm always trying to pay attention to what you're going through and what you're doing. And it's become so obvious to me over the past few years. I cannot really put a number on the years, but that you are going through somewhat of a of an evolution with your work, and the things that you are interested in, and the areas where you choose to lend your gift, your talents, your passion, and the causes that you choose to advance. One, am I correct in making this assumption or this observation? And two, if I am correct, tell us a little bit about that process. What has happened for you to be where you are today?
Well, you are correct. The my business, like, I've been self-employed now for a long time. I started my first business in about 2004, 2005, but I started Seed, my company now, in 2010, 2011. And we were a creative agency, which was normal creative agency. There was a few things that we did on the side, but we were a creative agency. But through the 10-year period, 11-year period, there has been some key milestones. And I know these milestones aren't always positive. There have been some really, really challenging times. They might be obviously starting a family, directors coming and going from the business, being bought out, etc. And just the business going in the wrong direction. And not only going in the wrong direction, having like really difficult challenges. And I feel like in those key periods, those challenges, we have pivoted and we've pivoted by going, peeling back the layers of the company and getting straight through to the core truth of who we are, who we are. And I think there's been some key milestones. I think there was one in about 2018. There was one in 2020, obviously, with most people did that. And then lots of mini ones prior to 2020. Or no, sorry, after 2020. So if we go back to 2018, I was running a studio, a design studio, and I was a training provider. I was doing lots of training, etc., etc. And I was a creative person, a creative director that started doing a bit of teaching prior to that. Like I was working with universities, I was writing modules, and I was good at it. And I got paid really well to do that. But over time, I was a creative director who became a teacher. Then all of a sudden I was a teacher who did a bit of creative direction. And I was in a really dark place. And I literally just had to hit the reset button. And overnight, I kind of worked out a couple of contracts. So I worked myself out, had to come out these contracts. A key member of staff left, and there was loads of changes happening in that business. Within a 6-month period, we moved out of our building. We stopped delivering contracts. I stopped working at universities, delivering as a lecturer. And all of us, and I would just literally pivoted, and we lost money. It was a really difficult period. And we then moved into a new space, and it was just full guns blazing at being a creative studio. So that was a huge point in my career. The second point happened in COVID. So through COVID, lockdown in my house, 2 small children at the time, me and Natalie every evening, because it was warm at that period. It was like kind of spring. We're going to spring. It was a warm spring. We were in the garden, just thinking, what we doing? What we doing with our agency? And at that point, we made the decision that we were going to solely focus on planet and people protecting projects. So we were doing that anyway. We'd been doing that for a long time. I'd been over 10 years. I'd worked in food waste. I'd worked in recycling. I'd worked with the NHS. I'd done loads of career development programs, lots of people and planet projects. But at that time, we were working in recruitment, construction, retail, and overnight, we basically got rid of all of our clients that weren't people and planet. And we didn't just let them down. We passed them on to other agencies, and we had to do lots of different things to wind down the contracts. But we moved over to people and planet. And one of the cool reasons why we did this was that this is where life and work met. Was our ikigai. This is that Venn diagram where your passions, what you can be paid for, what you're good at, and what the world needs. This is where they met. And it was the most important decision we ever made. And I'll never look back, because in our life, we were moving over to zero waste. We were moving over to plastic free. We were eating a lot less meat. We were looking at ways to be more sustainable. We were reducing our carbon footprint at home. And it just made sense that, well, we need to do this in work. And one of the key things at work or in life was, how can we make the most amount of change? How can we make the most amount of positive change in our lives and through work? And we said, well, dedicating our lives and our careers to use creativity to help leaders and innovators solve the world's biggest challenges. And the world's biggest challenge that we have right now is climate change. Climate change, pollution, circularity, so material usage, material wastage. These three things are the three biggest challenges. And if you had a fourth in people in that, equality, inclusion, social uplift, building social foundation, these are the things that the world's biggest challenges. And as soon as we started doing that, life changed. It really did. Our lives change. And it's almost like a rabbit hole. Once you go down that rabbit hole and you start finding how to be more sustainable, how to reduce carbon, how to teach people how to reduce their carbon, you literally just get involved in so many other areas. You get involved in technology, you get involved in the science. And most importantly, if we're going to talk about climate, the climate change problem, if you want to call it, or catastrophe, or whatever you want to call it, it's not a scientific problem anymore. It's not a technological problem anymore. It's a psychological problem. It's a social problem. And so where we are now is Seed is that we're trying to understand from a social point of view, how do we educate people so they understand what climate change is and how it affects them now and in the future, and how can they make small changes that will ultimately improve their lives so they have a healthier, happier, cleaner, greener life. And why should they do that? I always attach why. Why should they change their habits, their routines, and their behavior to be greener? And so, yeah, to go back to original questions, those are the two key moments. But yeah, over the last 3 years, it's dedicating our business now to help towards climate action. Really, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and it's so, again, it's so obvious that the change has happened, and the level of commitment to that cause through everything you do, and every channel is quite palpable, and it's quite inspiring for
Thank
people.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So then, obviously, then this is a perfect platform for you to continue the work. So for us, people like me, perhaps that seem to have, although you understand intellectually, to your point, the proof is there. You know, I know there are still some people that are not even quite sure factually that is happening. But I think for the most part, to your point, the challenge is no longer that there is no proof, it's not scientifically proven. There is a level of apathy that is pervasive around the majority of people. Um, what should we do? What should we be thinking about?
Okay, well, it's interesting that you mentioned there about whether people believe in it and there's a lot of people that believe that it's happening, but there's a lot of people that think, well, it doesn't affect my life now, so it doesn't really. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So if you don't see it around you affecting you, if you haven't got fires on the front of your doorstep, or your house is going to be flooded in the next 5 years, then obviously you're not going to do much about it. Now, the climate science isn't completely accurate from what I've heard. We don't really know what the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to look like. So we can just, if we just curb climate science for the time being, why don't we talk about things that we can see and we can touch and we can feel and we understand? One of them is pollution. Okay, pollution, especially in the UK, say in London, is on the rise, and it's deadly. It's killing people every year. The other thing we can look at is waste. Currently in the world, we use, in terms of raw materials, virgin materials, we're using more than 50% than the world can sustain. So we can't carry on cutting down trees. We can't carry on making plastic things. We can't carry on using water the way that we do. It literally is going to run out in the way that we are. So we need to be thinking about, one, how do we reduce pollution? Now, I think if we spoke to anyone, if you were a pollution denier, then you're not going to change their mind, right? If you live in a city, a big city, we understand that pollution is a problem. So how do we reduce the pollution? And a great way to talk to people about pollution is, have you got children? Do you care about your children? Do you care about your children's health? Yes. Well, we need to reduce pollution, because pollution in a city is ultimately going to give them asthma. It's going to give them all types of other types of viral diseases and bronchial diseases or whatever it is, breathing diseases. Like, do you care about that? Yeah. Okay, we need to reduce pollution. So what we need to do is we need to reduce the amount of cars on the road. How do we reduce the amount of cars on the road? Well, how do we get people to walk more? How do we get people to cycle more? And how do we get people to use public transport? So there's just a really simple takeaway there. So now, like, we've got one car, but most of my business trips now, I look at, if I've got a meeting or I'm doing a presentation or a talk, the first thing I do is, can I get there by public transport? Yes. How much is it going to cost? Right. Okay. It's going to be more. It's always going to be more than a car. You have to accept that. Can I walk somewhere? Can I cycle somewhere? So they're the things that I'm firstly looking at. Now, the good thing about walking and cycling is that it's healthier. I don't think there's anyone that's a health denier. There might be a climate denier, but they're not a health denier. Most people know that being healthy is a better way of life. So there's the pollution side of things. So in terms of waste, no one can deny that the seas are filling up with plastic. No one can deny that most of our, well, here in the UK, most of our wet spaces, be it rivers, lakes, except wetlands, that kind of stuff, they're polluted. They're massively polluted. We can't swim in the rivers in the UK, in loads of the big rivers, because they're polluted. So we can't deny that. So how do we make them cleaner? So one, how do we use less single-use plastic? How do we change the way that we use agriculture and the way we use fertilizers on land? These are really simple things that people can understand, and really simple solutions for people to make small changes. There's a common thing that I hear all the time is like, well, what's the point? Everyone else is doing it. But the most important saying is, every grain of rice tips the balance. Every time that you don't buy that plastic, you're contributing. Every time that you jump on a bus rather than jump in a car, like those, it's the small things. I believe in the compound effect. Like you keep making small change after small change after small change, then eventually in your own life, it will, it will, the totality of it will mean that you've made a big difference. Don't worry about anyone else. Just focus on you. Just focus on you. And when you're doing things better, and you've got a routine, and you feel good about yourself, and you're reducing your carbon, and you're doing your bit, then you can talk to your mum or your dad about what you're doing. You can talk to your brother, your sister. You can talk to your friends. It's not about preaching to them. It's just about saying, this is what I do, and this is why I do it, and maybe they can do the same. But it does come down to education. The reason why most people don't do these things, because they don't understand why. Because we don't educate people. And let's not talk about climate, because climate's big, it's audacious, it's the planet. Let's just talk about pollution and waste. It's simple. We talk about why we're polluting our planet, and why we're using too much stuff, and we don't dispose of it, and we don't reuse any of this stuff. Like, most people get that. So if you can talk to people about it, and we can educate people about it in a different way, in a way they can empathize with empathy, in a way that people understand, then people can go, okay, I get that now. I'll make little changes in my life. And that's what we do as Seed. Our job is to take these challenges, these kind of global issues, local issues, if you want to call them, and deliver them to people in a new way, in a way that they go, okay, yeah, I see this now. I see why this is a problem. And I see some small things that I can do in my life that I can change.
Yeah. I mean, I think this issue, and you mentioned it earlier, it's a psychological issue. It will require a great deal of empathy to really understand how people live, how they make choices, how they make decisions. Because for me, like, the more I listen to you, is we are so resistant to change in our regular lives, in our normal lives, even for the things that we know are better for us, even for the things that are currently affecting us, right? Like, I know currently, for example, that I should stop eating too much chocolate, for example. Like, I know that, but it's so difficult for us as human beings to make those changes in habits. And I think the apathy that we see is really people, one, being naturally resistant to change, and two, being not very good at forming new habits and sticking with them. And I think for me, there's Rory Sutherland always does this very eloquently. But the point that he essentially makes is that he doesn't even care why you are doing it, right? He doesn't care that you are explicitly doing it to save the planet or to curb pollution. He just wants you to do it. And I think at times there is this obsession with making sure that people understand why this is so important for them to do. You mentioned earlier cycling more. Like for me, this is a thing where you can remove pollution and all of that and really turn it into a fun, practical thing. And the outcome, the byproduct of creating that movement is that, okay, it's curbing pollution, it's curbing, right? So I feel like we need to think a little bit more in those terms, in terms of people just doing these things because it's cool, because it's fun, because it's easy, and not necessarily even because they care about the planet. And for the few that do care about the planet, let's tap into them and educate them, and give them ways to be ambassadors and to lead the movement a little bit more.
I agree. I've got a saying, and I use this in some of my talks. I do a community building talk, which is all based around climate. And we need to empower people with the ideation of possibilities. And what I mean by empowering people with the ideation of possibilities is empowering people. You can't tell people what to do. You can't tell people what to do.
Mm.
No, that's not going to work. Demonizing, nudging, all these things, they don't work. What you have to try and do is you have to show people an option. And the reason what you do when you show them an option is you show them an option so they can create their own ideas. So with ideation, it's almost you have to plant the seed. So you show people, say, look, this is the situation at the moment, and here are some options of what life could look like. And you have to let people make their own decisions. But if you can guide them, and if you can show them the different options of where life could go and what life could be like, then they can come up with their own ideas. You don't, and the thing with this is it's about language. So we talk about saving the planet. We don't need to save the planet. The planet's been around for billions of years. The planet will be here long after the human race has been wiped out. So what we need to do is we need to show them that, or tell people about that, climate change is coming for you. It is coming for you, whatever you want to call it. Global people killer, if you want to call it like massive weather disruption, reduction of food, whatever you want to call it, it's coming for you. It's going to be on your doorstep at some point, and you need to be ready for it. But when the ideation of possibilities is, say you run a business, actually, if you're just thinking, well, I just want to be a profitable business, I want to make money, there's money in the green pound. If money is important to you and you want to make money, then there is money to be made. There's new business models, there's new markets. You can attract talent, you can attract customers by being more green. And that's not to say greenwashing, so like you're going to lie about it. No, I mean actually fundamentally changing your business model so that you are more sustainable and that you are working towards a carbon neutral business. Like there is money to be made in that. So there's the first thing. But let's just look at our own lives. Look, we all want the same thing. Like we all want the same thing. We all want to be happy. We all want to be safe, and we want to be comfortable. Like we want things to be convenient. I get it. I'm the same, but we've got to start thinking. We've got to have a growth mindset here and start looking into the future. And we've got to start thinking 5-10 years ahead, whether it be for ourselves or for our families or for our friends. You've got to start thinking ahead now and actually start looking at, how do I become more sustainable? Because one, it could be more profitable for my business, and two, it's healthier. Like we talked about cycling and walking, like that's a positive thing. And actually, and if we look at things, reduction of waste, we can have a simpler, more minimalist life. We can use less things. It makes us cook more. It makes us cook better whole foods. It means that we don't have loads of stuff. I don't think people want stuff, do they? Like, do you want cupboards full of stuff? Like, you should have things that you care about. You should have things that mean something to you. But I just don't think people want stuff anymore. I don't know if that's just me, but I think actually having a simpler, less stressful way of life, a reduction in our life, is much better. And it's not to say to be aspirational. You can still be aspirational. You can still want things. You can go and still explore and travel and do what you want to do. But the key word here is less. How do I fly less? How do I eat less meat? Or how do I use less stuff? The power of less. And less isn't a bad thing. Actually, as a monk, less is proven to be a better way of life. So but that's difficult because since we're at school, we've only been taught about more
Absolutely.
money, more bedrooms, faster car, more holidays, more gold, more bling. That's more, more, more. And actually, we need more influencers in the world now that are saying, no, you don't need that. What you need to do is you need to have empathy. You need to have love and compassion and try live a life of less. Give it a go.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are coming toward the end of this conversation, and I really couldn't have scripted a better end,
Nice.
than this message about doing less, having less, and ultimately being more, right? Because
Mm.
that's what we get when we have less stuff. We afford ourselves the opportunity to be more. Um, and
Yeah, and you said, what can people do to take away this? If you just want to look at it in its purity, just think about how you move around and what you use and what you put in your body or put in on your body. Those like kind of four things. So like how I move around, energy, what energy I use, what I put in my mouth, and what I put on my back, like my clothes. If you
yeah.
could just look at those four things and just make small changes, just make little changes here and there, then that's great. That's amazing. If we all made small changes, we'd make massive impact long term.
All right. Well, we all have our marching orders. So where can people find you?
Okay, so to find out about Seed, just type in, well, just go to our website, seedcreativity.co.uk. We're on all the platforms. And then for my kind of stuff, thought leadership stuff, it's brand master flash. I don't honestly make a lot of stuff these days. I'm normally just in projects, but I kind of do content in waves, and there'll be more waves of Seed and brand master flash content coming soon.
Great. Well, Johnny, as expected, this has been a really, really enlightening conversation, and I didn't expect anything less from an enlightened marketer and thought leader and human
Thank
being.
you.
So, thank you very much for all you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Junior.